Good afternoon, Panther Nation. I wish I could say it is great to see you, but unfortunately, when we hold these events virtually and doing it the manner in which we are so that we could allow as many people as possible into the town hall meeting, I cannot actually see anyone. So I will stare at this camera and imagine all of your beautiful smiling faces out there in Panther Nation land. This is our town hall meeting to discuss the ESSER 3 grant funding. So we're going to jump right in and get started. I know you all have a lot that you need to do this afternoon, so we're not going to keep you very long. But I did want to take some time to come to you and share as much information as we have at this point as we begin to look at this grant. As we all know, this has been a very tough year. And with it, as we begin to emerge from the pandemic restrictions and so forth, we do know that there is still fallout that we're seeing due to the way we've had to do different things this year. So these issues we need to address, and we are very thankful that the federal government and the state government has seen and heard us of the concerns we have as we think about what we need to do to meet these challenges and how we meet them quickly. And so they have released some federal funding that has come in the way of this ESSER 3 grant. During this presentation, we're doing it, as I said, through YouTube Live so that we could have as many participants as possible. And hopefully people took time to join us. If not, we are recording this, so we will be posting it for all those that are working or had other activities so they can view at a later time. If you have any questions to post or ideas as we go through this, please put in the comments section. And my assistant, Ms. Blaze, is over here watching for comments and questions. And at the end, I will try to answer the questions that you pose. So let's get started. The purpose of the ESSER 3 grant. According to the grant documents, this funding is put out to address the impact that COVID-19 has had and continues to have on school districts. The funds must be measured by whether what you're going to do is allowable, justifiable, and related to the pandemic. They must address academic learning loss and instructional time, as well as social, emotional, and mental health. And we have already been discussing that all year long as we've watched how we've moved from virtual learning back to campus-based learning. And we know that there has been a loss of learning because of the way all of this rolled out. I'm very proud of the work that our Aransas Pass ISD staff, our teachers, our principals, our administrators all work diligently to take on the challenges and make the changes that were necessary, but it was very difficult as it was across the nation. And I applaud all of you as parents and hopefully some of our secondary students that are watching for all that you did to try to rise up and meet these very difficult times. But we want to make sure that as we move forward, that we take care of all the issues that may arise, that may be there, so that we can move forward stronger and better. The amount of funding that our district is looking to receive is $4,843,100. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't even say. I don't normally talk about millions of dollars. So $4,843,178. Now I've got it right. And you heard me right. That is $4.8 million that our district will receive through this grant funding. That is very exciting, and it's funding to be used during the next 3 years. So we have the task before us now to think very carefully about what are the needs, how do we address those needs, and how do we use this money in a way to facilitate the changes, the support, and all that is needed. So we want to do this very wisely. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is, and we're very thankful for this blessing, but we need to be very aware that we need to think through carefully and ensure that we spend it wisely so that by the end of the 3-year grant period, that we can look back and say, we did everything we could. We used this money wisely. We provided the support for all that was needed, and we are better for it, and we are back on target, hopefully before the end of the 3rd year. So with that in mind, I want to tell you a little bit. So as you start thinking about ideas to share with us and hear some of our ideas, I wanted to frame it in what the federal government and TEA will be looking at as they approve what we can spend the funding on. There will be, because this is as TEA put it, this is the largest federal funding that has been put out to school districts, I believe, in the history of education. So with that, though, will come very strict monitoring by TEA, and districts will be audited on how this money is spent. That makes total sense to ensure that we are spending it as was intended. So with that, there are a lot of regulations and hoops we have to jump through to ensure that we do this right. So there are several areas that we need to make sure we're looking at as we brainstorm what we're going to use these funds to do. First is supporting our teachers. That is so very important. What do our teachers need to meet the challenges that are before them? And the things that have been listed as we work through some different frameworks have been looking at how we support our teachers by building capacity so that they can implement those key components of effective instruction in reading, language arts, and math, 2 of our very core subjects that also having that reading, language arts content and math helps our social studies and science also, as well as any type of elective. Those are our core content pieces. So how do we build that capacity? Also, how do we deliver interventions and individualized support for all students? Due to this year, we have students that have come at us, and some were home a little longer than others. Then when some came back, they may have struggled coming back into the school system just because of all the mental stress that this pandemic brought on to our students and our families and our teachers. So we've got to be aware that we need to be very clear on what our interventions and support will be for our students. Basically, how do we meet them where they are now and get them caught up, close those gaps, and get them back to where they need to be as quickly as possible. We also, in order to support our teachers, we need to look at adding any additional staff that might be needed to meet the needs of these students as we close these gaps. And finally, in this area, ensuring that all students have high quality instructional materials. So those are some key areas we need to consider. Some ideas that we have been brainstorming at the district level as we begin this preparation to roll out to everyone. We just thought we would have some ideas just to get you thinking. And by no means are we saying these are things that we definitely will do, but these are thoughts and maybe help. If you're like me, if you give me a kind of a framework and idea, then I can really start thinking and being creative. So to provide this support, some of the ideas we are looking at, first, we are already scheduled for our kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers to receive the Reading Academies training this next year. That was already in place, and we had been planning it before the pandemic began. So we want to make sure we provide the best support possible for them, because we know some of our younger students may have increased gaps in their reading abilities. So through these reading academies, our teachers will be learning so many great things and receiving so many tools, but we want to provide support because that's a big training for them to have throughout the year. So the possibility of hiring a literacy coach to provide them that support, so that it's not just that they go through it alone, but they have someone to coach them through it and support them in the learning so that it can be implemented and turned around to our students. Also looking at, because we have our scope and sequences that we do each year, and we know that we're going to have students that will be moving to the next grade level, that we feel like with support and remediation, they will be able to make it. But we need to look at what that's going to look like. How do you bring, for example, a third grader into fourth grade that may have missed some key concepts, but not enough to retain them? So how do we go back and pull them up while we continue to move forward? And that's a tremendous task for our teachers. So providing an opportunity to have a summer scope and sequence planning time for our teachers, we thought might be a good idea. Of course, we know our teachers have worked so hard this summer or this year, and they need a summer break. They need some time. So we'd want to compact this into, about 3 days would be the most we'd want to pull them to do this. And we feel like it could be done, but we would want to compensate them with stipends. This funding can be used to that so that they can get some extra things done, get some prep in place before they come back in August. But we could compensate them for their time and limit the time that we pull them in. The next is opportunities for our teachers to attend learning conferences. There's so many great opportunities out there, especially now that things are starting to open back up. So over the next 3 years, I know teachers have asked and wanted to go to different conferences or trainings, and sometimes we just do not have the funding to do that. Here's an opportunity for us to really be able to allow them to go and get some of that fantastic training that they've always wanted. We know that in the area of math, we have struggled some with that, and looking at different ways to help our students. So bringing in possibly a math interventionist could aid us in looking at coming at it from a different direction, and once again, provide our teachers and our students with the support that's needed. We've also looked at and considered, what if we brought in a district response to intervention coordinator? We call it the RTI, response to intervention. If we had a response to intervention coordinator for the district, they could oversee and pull those data points and then work closely with our teachers and our administrators to pinpoint where the areas of concern are, so that the teachers then, instead of them having to dig so much in the data, it's presented to them, they could take that data and then begin to make the changes needed for their lessons. So it would kind of help them get more into the implementation, because they'd have that support for the data dig. Also, we need to evaluate and purchase materials needed and see what our teachers feel like they need to take care of the needs. Purchasing software programs that are showing beneficial results. We purchased quite a few software programs this year for the year so that we could use them while we were virtual, especially. But we've seen a lot of benefits to those programs. So to continue that, of course, there's cost. With this funding, we could continue those software programs that the teachers feel like are beneficial. We could hire key staff to support learning area needs, provide training and mentoring programs for our instructional paras. We have some great paraprofessionals, but sometimes we don't provide that training and support that they need, so they can be the best instructional para to support the teachers and the students. And finally, in this area, provide coaching for all certified staff. We provided for our core teachers this year. It was done virtually, which was not the best way to do it, but we did provide them coaching this year through Engage to Learn, and found that the teachers had that sounding board and another set of eyes to look at what they're doing and point them in a direction of best practices. So with this funding, we could open it up to provide this kind of support for every teacher in the district, no matter what you teach. So that as we grow into what we had started before the pandemic, which was our Panther pathway, our blended learning processes that we want to have, that we've already seen great results with, we want to provide that support for our teachers. So we could do that with this kind of funding. We could provide this next year that kind of level of support, which is not seen in hardly any districts. And because I've always told the staff and the admin team, I believe in high expectations with high support. And that's what we're talking about here. We don't want to water anything down, and I know our staff doesn't, because I've seen how hard they work. They don't water it down, but we want to make sure they have everything they need. So we need you to be thinking about these ideas and others that we could consider that will take us to the next level and help us close these gaps and provide that support for our teachers. The next area is creating more time for learning. And this is a big push from Texas Education Agency. Even when we were doing our calendar, they were really pushing us to consider doing calendars that had intersession time. So basically you would go year round and have intersession. And we kind of put that out there and got some feedback that for our community, that probably would not work well. So with that said, we have a more traditional calendar, but what could we do within that to provide more learning time? Since we have lost some due to this pandemic, we weren't able to do it at the level that we prefer. But some of the opportunities here are to look at summer learning opportunities, extend instructional time before or after school, have high dosages of tutoring, and acceleration academies during holiday breaks, intersessions, or weekends. I can tell you right there, any teachers that are watching, don't panic. Those are ideas from TEA. I'm not proposing that we pull you back in during your holiday breaks, intersessions, or weekends. That is just something TEA is recommending us to consider. So I'm just putting it out there. So do not panic. We get to create what is best for our community and our district. Some ideas we've thought about in this area would be, we would have the funding now to do high impact summer school and or summer camps. So, I mean, I can just see the wheels turning in some teachers' minds right now of how awesome it would be to be able to create some of those camps, or, whether it's a STEM academy or a robotics opportunity that pulls in math and reading, acceleration. There's so many things we could do there. So be thinking, what could that look like and what could we do? And we have the funding now, we could make some of that happen, where in the past it was just a dream. So can you imagine what we can do with this to help our students impact their lives forever? Another thing was tutoring support for students during the school day. So this might look like retired teachers in our communities that would like to come back and just work some, and we could pay them to come in and tutor our kids that are struggling. That would support the teachers that find it difficult sometimes to manage to meet the needs of all the students. College students from our area colleges, if they want to come over, we could pay them to help us. We already have an emerging a group of professionals within our district. At our high school, we're going to have 5 seniors that are wanting to be teachers, and they're going to be working in the afternoons on our elementary campuses to help with our students. So it's a time to really be creative and think about what could we do to provide that extra support. And the final piece we need to consider as we look at how we're going to spend these funds is to empower the parents and the students. This is so very important. It is last, but definitely not least. This is where we need to engage our families and provide wraparound services. So you probably are thinking, what does that mean? Well, here are some ideas to consider. Hiring a district family engagement coordinator. We all know that our counselors would love to be able to do more of this type of thing, but sometimes they are so overwhelmed with so much on the campuses, it's hard to get to that next level. And so we play around with ideas of, wouldn't it be great if we had this family learning night, or we did this or that, but finding enough hands on deck or time to plan those types of things and promote them gets difficult. So a district family engagement coordinator could really help us begin to do more of that. Then we could host family events and learning nights, because we'd have someone to coordinate it, publicize it, and prepare it, and we would support it. Another idea is to continue our partnership with communities and schools for support at the middle school. We had this support at the high school this past year, and we'll continue something in that manner. But we could continue the communities and schools at the middle school, and they would have access to that kind of support coming in to aid our students in ensuring that they have everything they need to be successful in working with the families to encourage the students to be at school and do their very best. We could also, and this is a big one, we'd already started talking about this before we got these funds. We were very concerned about the mental, social health of our students because this pandemic has been difficult on everyone. I have said I don't think any of us are coming through this the same on this side as we were on the other side. I hope that we will hold on to any of the good that we have gained through it, and we'll just put the rest of it behind us and hope we never have to go through anything like that again. But with that, we're very concerned about some of our students, how this has really affected them and how over time it will manifest itself. So we need to be prepared to help them with any fears that they have. We've seen apathy in some of our students. How do we help them and provide that support? Because this has been very difficult and we're beginning to see the fallout from that. So we need our counselors to be able to counsel. And we'd already started trying to figure out how we were going to do that with our current staff. Now this funding will make it so much easier because we need to relieve some of those duties that have been just piled upon them because of mandates after mandates from TEA just seem to fall on the counselors. So having an opportunity to relieve some of those duties, and one such thing, of course, with the response to intervention coordinator, that would pull some things off that I talked about earlier. But another big one, if we hired a district assessment coordinator, that would be huge. I can almost hear the counselors saying yippee, because a lot of their time is spent holding LPAC meetings, 504 meetings, pulling together different paperwork. All those things are very, very important and need to be done. And then you have the STAR testing on top of all that. And we have to do those things and they need to be done and they need to be done well. But the counselors, they need to be counseling. And if we had someone else handling those pieces and working then with the counselors and administrators, then everyone could be more focused. And that's the point of this, is how do we have enough hands on deck so people are very focused in certain areas and we can do the jobs at a higher level, because there's just so much of each of us to go around. The other thing is to think about looking at a character development program for our students. What would that look like and what could we do? And we're open to just some creative ideas of how we build character and pride throughout our district. We could also have funding where we could hold special events for students to bring in speakers and different motivational opportunities so that we can build that Panther pride. We can develop student leadership and really take our district to that level that I know we all want it to be. This is such a great district. There are so many wonderful, wonderful things going on. And even through this pandemic, I have been amazed at the resiliency and the commitment of our entire community and our staff and our families to come together and just go through this and know that we're going to come out better on the other side. And with this funding, we have an opportunity to ensure that that happens. So like I said, these are just some ideas, and I'm sure the wheels are turning for you now, and hopefully you're putting it in the comments and providing us with other ideas. So what we want, we're going to continue asking for your input so that we can take this information and figure out how to meet these academic learning loss and instructional time pieces, as well as that social, emotional, and mental health of all of our students. So the next steps we're going to take is tomorrow we will release this recorded video along with a survey. That way anyone that was unable to watch it can watch it again and then look at the survey. And in the survey, we want you to provide input to us. We're only going to keep this open until Friday, this Friday, May 21st, because the turnaround for this needs to be pretty quick, especially if we're going to say that as a district, we want to hire any more staff. We need to get out there and get after it because the pool of teachers and paras is very small, and we're having to really go after it to make sure we get the quality of people we want here in the district. Our campus principals, they're going to be meeting with their staff members, and they're going to complete a thought exchange session to generate ideas. So if your staff member is watching, still complete the survey individually, that's great, but you'll also have another opportunity as a team to look at it from your campus perspective, because the ideas I gave today are looking at it from a district perspective, but we need to hear from you that are in the trenches, because you know better than anyone what we need to do to get this thing back where we want it to be. We'll take all of this information that we're going to gather, and we are going then to basically then take it and implement our basic or produce our basic implementation plan. And then we have to submit it to TEA for approval. They have said that no one will be denied, but they are going to negotiate with us. So they will look at what we are saying. So like all these ideas I just said, if they were in the plan, they will look at each one. And if they come back and say, what do you mean by district assessment coordinator? I mean, how is that really going to help our students close the gaps? And so we may have to explain that, how we see that would be beneficial. But they have assured us that this is our funding, but they will be monitoring how we're spending it. So that's why we have to be careful. So once we have that plan in place, they'll drop the funding to us. We can really start moving along. As I said, so it's basically developing our first year plan that will probably hit hard and heavy, but we'll have our second and third year already thought out what we will continue and what things might drop off. There might be some things we do just the first year and we want to drop off the second and third, because we have to remember we want this to also be sustainable. So there are some of these positions or opportunities that we have to be careful that when we get to the end of the third year that we're okay to lose those positions, or we found a way to continue it with other funding in our district. So a lot of things to consider, but what a great opportunity for us to to be able to think about how to spend $4.8 million to help our students. So together we're going to, as I said, the basic plan, we can also tweak it and revisit it throughout the process as we go through this journey, because as we receive more data and more information and see where our scores are, how our students are doing, where the mental health is, we may come up with some other ideas or have to adjust, and we're being allowed to do that. So that is it in a nutshell, and I know that is a lot of information that I have thrown at you. I've had a couple of weeks to think about it now, and my head's still spinning with this information. But I know together we're going to walk through this and we're going to do some great things with this funding. So Blaze, do we have any questions? Suggestions. Okay, well then we'll keep the suggestions and that we will use those. So no questions. So good. Maybe that means I did a great job and you got it all, or I've got your head spinning so fast you just don't even know what to ask at this point. And that's kind of how I've been feeling myself. So we're going to, all the suggestions you've made, we are going to add those to our list. You're going to have, like I said, have other opportunities to share through the survey. If you're a staff member, you'll be able to share through the thought exchange. Students, I hope students are on here or will at least be listening to the video. We want to hear from you. This is your education. Tell us how you feel, what you think about this. What do you think we need to do to help you get back on track where you feel excited about learning and you feel like you're moving forward? Because that's why we're here. We're here for you. We're here to make sure you get the best education possible. It has been a pleasure to speak with you this evening. Thank you for joining me. If you do have any questions, we will also try to put, like we did back when we were going through all the pandemic, we'll have a place for you to post questions. Of course, we also have the email address on our website, and those emails come straight to me, and then I answer them. So just reach out to us, and we will get your questions answered if you have any. Otherwise, get to thinking, brainstorming, and let's come up with some fantastic ways to use this funding wisely so that we can bring about transformation and close those gaps and do some amazing things here in Panther Nation. Thank you. Have a great evening.